Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, I bring you a very special story about Lythieuca, a woman who has always stood strong through every hardship in her life. As many of you already know, Lythieuca is a single mother who has raised her son alone for many years. And by her side, there is always Officer Hung, the man who loves her quietly, steadily, and with unwavering devotion. Lythieuca's life has never been easy. She was separated from her parents when she was young and grew up as an orphan, surviving thanks to the kindness of a stranger who took her in. Because of that, family has always been something distant yet sacred enough to bring her to tears. And then, something unexpected happens today. A man suddenly appears, claiming to be her biological father. He comes with a face full of emotion, his voice trembling as if he is reaching for a piece of the past he has lost. Meanwhile, Lythieuca stands frozen, unsure whether she should trust him, refuse him, or stay cautious. Is this man truly her father? Will Lythieuca be able to open the door she has kept closed for so many years? And what will Hung do when the woman he loves is forced to confront the pain she has buried? All of these questions will be revealed in today's video. Please watch until the end to feel and follow Lythieuca's emotional journey. The yard still carried the chill of early morning. A thin layer of mist lingered on the ground, on the steps, and on the blades of grass by the porch, making the whole space feel as if it had just woken up. On the clothesline, tiny drops of dew clung to the wires, shimmering under the first touch of sunlight. Whenever a breeze passed by, they trembled like little crystals about to fall. Lythieuca was bent over, hanging Tony's tiny clothes one by one. She moved slowly and carefully, as if the smallest slip would send the clothes tumbling to the ground. Each clip was secured with practiced precision, the habit of a mother who had spent years living frugally, doing everything by hand, caring for her child down to the smallest detail. A few steps away, Tony sat proudly on an old, faded mat that, despite its age, was spotless. He hugged his stuffed animal tightly, his chubby little feet kicking softly against the mat, babbling sounds no one could quite understand. Whenever he looked up, his round black eyes shone with pure innocence, the kind that softened anyone who saw him. Sometimes he let out a giggle, small, but enough to warm the quiet little yard. Not far from them, Hung stood under the roof of the porch, holding a small hammer in one hand. He was tightening the loose nails on the eaves, his face focused, his hands rough from years of work. The tapping of the hammer, tap, 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 echoed steadily and rhythmically. Simple as it was the sound of a man trying to make their little home just a bit sturdier. That morning was strangely peaceful. Poor, but clean. Simple, yet warm. A kind of peace people often dream of when life gets too heavy. Then suddenly, a soft cough came from outside the gate. Quiet, but enough to break the calm of the morning. Lythieuca, Hung, and even Tony paused, sensing something unusual. Lythieuca turned around instinctively. At the gate stood a man. He looked to be in his early 50s, thin, with slightly hunched shoulders as if he had carried too much sorrow for too many years. His face was gaunt, his eyes sunken and tired, yet behind them was a look, difficult to describe. Like someone who had just found something he had been searching for half a lifetime. Lythieuca's brows drew together. Her voice remained polite but guarded. "Sir, who are you looking for?" The man didn't answer right away. He stared at her for a long time, long enough for Hung to sense that something wasn't right. The man's hands trembled slightly, his eyes red and watery, as if holding back tears. Finally, he swallowed hard and spoke. "I am looking for my daughter." In that instant, time seemed to freeze. The hammer in Hung's hand stopped midair. He turned sharply, eyes wide, shock mixing with caution. And Hoai, her heart skipped a beat, and she didn't even know why. The entire yard fell silent, so silent they could hear the wind brushing past the roof. Hoai stiffened for a moment. A few seconds later, her brows tightened slightly, the natural reaction of someone who had lived through too much loss and learned to be cautious. But even so, her voice remained polite. "Sir, I was taken in by someone when I was very young. I never knew who my parents were." Her tone was calm, yet her eyes betrayed a hint of confusion. As if this sudden story had touched the deepest corner of her heart, the place that held questions she never expected to answer. The man before her took a deep breath. He pressed a hand to his chest, as if trying to steady his breathing. In his eyes, pain swirled beneath the surface, tightly held back. "I know. Because you are the child who went missing years ago." Every word trembled as it left his lips, as though he were forcing himself not to break down. Then he slowly opened the worn fabric bag slung over his shoulder. His movements were gentle, almost reverent, like someone handling a fragile treasure that might shatter with a single wrong touch. From the bag, he took out an old photograph, its corners yellowed with age. In the picture was a little girl, about 2 years old. Big round eyes, chubby cheeks, soft curly hair falling around her face. That innocent expression looked so much like Hoai that it made the breath catch in one's throat. The eyes. The smile. The shape of the face. Even Hung, standing a few steps away, felt his brows tighten. He moved forward quickly, taking his place right beside Hoai. He didn't say anything at first, but the way he stood, straight-backed, slightly angled as if shielding her, said everything about his protectiveness. His voice was low, firm, full of warning. "Explain yourself clearly." The man swallowed hard, his throat bobbing as if forcing down all the emotions threatening to rise. "That day, I turned away for just a few minutes, and she was gone." His hands trembled. "Your mother and I searched for years. Every time we heard about an abandoned child, I went to check. And after your mother died, I still didn't stop." His voice cracked gradually, as though one more sentence would finally push the tears over the edge. Hoai stared at the photograph. Her lips trembled slightly. Her fingers clenched around the picture, as if she were being pulled back into a memory she had never lived. Not knowing whether it was fear or instinct, she reached down and held Tony's small hand. The boy immediately pressed himself against her leg, wrapping his tiny arms around her pants. His round black eyes looked at the stranger at the gate, and he let out a few soft, uncertain sounds. A child's innocent wariness, but enough to thicken the tension in the air. Hung shifted half a step forward, becoming a living wall between the man and the mother and child. And Hoai, her heart pounded wildly, caught between doubt, emotion, and a fear she couldn't name. The man at the gate took a long breath, as if gathering the last bit of courage left in his life. His hands trembled as he opened the worn cloth bag, his thin fingers searching inside for a moment before finally pulling out a tiny object. A silver bracelet. So small that most people wouldn't notice it if it were placed on their palm. Yet it gleamed with a faint, delicate shine, the kind that looked as if someone had polished it thousands of times. On the bracelet were 2 faintly engraved letters, CA. When it turned under the light, those 2 letters seemed to tear through the silence. His voice cracked. "The day you disappeared, you were wearing this bracelet. I have kept it for decades, hoping one day I would find you again." In that moment, the entire yard felt frozen. Hoai stared at the bracelet as if it held a piece of memory she never knew she had. Her breath caught in her throat. She reached out to touch it, her fingertips trembling. But the moment she brushed it, She pulled her hand back, as if it were too hot, or too heavy, or too frightening. Because sometimes, hope is the thing that hurts the most. She forced her voice to stay steady. Sir, based on just this, I can't believe it. The man lowered his head. His shoulders trembled, as if fate had delivered yet another blow. I understand. He inhaled deeply, and his voice broke again. That's why I want a DNA test. The words fell onto the quiet yard like thunder splitting the morning open. Hung immediately placed his hand on Hoai's shoulder. A simple gesture, but solid and steady. As if telling her, no matter what happens, he would be right here. His voice was low, firm. If you want to do it, I'll go with you. Hoai lifted her eyes to him. Her gaze flickered with a storm of emotions. Fear, tightness, hope, and an invisible kind of hurt that she couldn't even name. She didn't answer. She didn't nod or shake her head. She simply stood there, unmoving, but not stepping back. In that silence, everyone understood. She was weighing a decision that could change the rest of her life. That afternoon, the entire village was covered in a pale golden hue, like a thin silk scarf draped across the sky. Sunlight filtered through the tree canopies, stretching across the road in long, quiet streaks, beautiful, yet tinged with a gentle sadness. The air carried the early winter chill, the kind that made people instinctively want to hold their child close and shield them from the cold. The three of them began their trip to the district hospital. Hoai sat in the back seat, holding Tony in her arms. The little boy curled up against her, his small head nuzzling into her chest as if searching for the safest place in the world. His tiny hands clutched the fabric of her shirt tightly, gripping so hard his knuckles turned white, as if afraid that if she loosened her embrace even for a moment, he might be taken away. When the car rolled over a pothole, Tony let out a soft, a confused little sound, as though he were asking, "Where are we going, Mommy? Why aren't we staying home to play?" Hoai lowered her head, brushing a gentle kiss against his soft hair. Her palm rubbed his back in slow, steady motions, not just to soothe him, but to steady her own trembling heart. Ever since she stepped into the car, she could feel the unease inside her growing. Fear, worry, hope, all mixed together in a way that made her chest tighten. The road to the district hospital was narrow and dusty. The car moved slowly, bouncing with every pothole, the engine's hum blending with the wind whistling past the windows, creating a strangely heavy silence. Inside the car, the quiet thickened, as if it had weight. No one spoke. No one dared to. Because a single misplaced word could make everything overflow, like a dam breaking. From the front seat, the man kept glancing at Hoai through the rearview mirror. Each glance cut deeper into his memories. The more he looked, the more he saw the resemblance. The big, sorrow-tinged eyes. The slope of her nose. The small, delicate mouth. Even the way she held her child, exactly like the way her mother once held her. Gentle, careful, and shadowed by an inexplicable fear. At one point, his eyes grew wet. He quickly turned his face toward the window, wiping them away before anyone noticed. He was afraid of making Hoai uncomfortable, afraid of shaking the fragile space inside the car. Seeing this, Hung spoke first. He wanted to keep the situation contained, to ensure Hoai wasn't cornered emotionally. "Talk slowly, sir. My wife, she's easily overwhelmed." His voice was low, controlled, firm. Simple words, but they drew a clear boundary, a protective wall between Hoai and the emotional storm looming ahead. The man startled slightly, then nodded immediately. His gaze dropped, hands tightening around the cloth bag on his lap. His voice came out rough, cracking at the edges. "I'm sorry. I don't want to scare her. It's just... I've waited for this day for so long." The last sentence was so soft that even a light wind could have carried it away. But Hoai heard it clearly. And her heart, the same heart that had carried too many wounds since childhood, trembled once again. Just a small tremor. But enough to make her tighten her hold on Tony. In the examination room, the cold white neon lights hanging from the ceiling cast a harsh, emotionless brightness over everything. The room was so sterile that even the rustling of rubber gloves could be heard clearly, along with the metallic clang of syringes hitting the steel tray, a sound sharp enough to chill the spine. The air was stretched thin, like a taut string ready to snap. Tony sat on the small examination table meant for children. When the metallic glint of the syringe flashed in the nurse's hand, his round eyes widened instantly. His lips pressed together, then curled downward in a trembling pout. His chubby face scrunched up, his tiny body shivering, the pure instinctive fear of a child who didn't need anyone to explain what pain meant. 1 second later, he let out a small cry. Soft, but heartbreakingly sharp. Then the cry burst into scattered sobs, broken little hiccups. His tiny hands flailed toward his mother, his legs kicked wildly, his little body trembling as if he feared the needle might take him away. Hoai rushed forward immediately. She lifted Tony into her arms, holding him against her chest as if shielding him from everything terrible in the world. "It's okay, it's okay. Mommy's here. Mommy's right here." Her voice shook with every word, caught tight in her throat. Not because of the needle, but because Tony's cry felt like it was tearing straight through her heart. She held him so tightly her own breathing matched his panicked rhythm. One hand stroked his back in the familiar, gentle pattern she had learned through years of raising him alone. The other hand shielded his head, a reflex born from too many nights fighting fear by herself. Tony buried his face into her shoulder, his tears and mucus soaking into her shirt as he continued to sob. From the corner of the room, the man watched. His gaze, shattered. He had missed everything. He had missed his daughter's first cry, her first steps, her fevers, her first words. Every moment a father should have held, he had lost. Now, watching Hoai cradling her son as if she were protecting her entire world, he could only stand still. His aged hands curled so tightly that the veins rose beneath the skin, his vision blurring like a fog had covered his eyes. If someone were to touch his shoulder now, he would break down like a child. When the nurse finished collecting Tony's sample and the boy finally calmed into soft sniffles in his mother's arms, it was Hoai's turn. She stood up. Tony clung to her shirt instantly, terrified of being separated. His tiny fingers clenched so hard his hands turned red. Hoai had to ask Hung to hold him. Hung stepped forward, lifting Tony gently with one arm, his other hand rubbing the boy's back. "It's okay, son. Mommy will be done in a moment." His voice was low, steady, yet full of quiet authority. Even though Tony was still hiccuping, he calmed down bit by bit in Hung's arms, clinging to his neck as if it were the only lifeline he had left. Hoai stepped toward the examination table. Her hand touched the cold metal surface, cold enough to jolt her fully awake. The nurse prepared the syringe, the sound of the wrapper tearing slicing through the air. At that moment, the man took a shaky step forward. His shoes scraped softly against the tile floor. His voice cracked. "If you truly are my daughter, then I will owe you for the rest of my life." The words fell into the examination room like a heavy drop of water onto a heart already exhausted. A sentence that carried apology, regret, and pleading all at once. A sentence that made Hoai freeze for a heartbeat. She didn't dare turn around, because if she looked into his eyes, she knew she would break down. Right then, Hung stepped closer. He positioned himself right behind her, a shield against everything overwhelming her. His hand rested gently on her shoulder. Gentle, yet solid as a mountain. "I'm here. You'll be okay." Hoai closed her eyes for just a moment, just one. Only a second, but enough for her to gather herself, to pull strength back into her body so she wouldn't collapse in a room filled with her child's sobs and the trembling voice of the man calling her daughter. The nurse stepped out of the examination room, a folded sheet of paper in her hand. She looked at the three of them, then said gently, "The results will be ready in 3 days. We'll contact you when they're available." Her voice was calm and professional. But the moment those words echoed down the hallway, everything fell into a thick, heavy silence. 3 days. For most people, that wouldn't be long. But for a woman carrying so many old wounds like Hoai, and a man who had waited half his life for this moment, 3 days felt like 3 years. The hospital hallway was stark white, filled with the faint smell of disinfectant. Hardly anyone passed by, and the only sounds were distant footsteps and the steady beeping of a monitor from another room. Hoai lowered her gaze to Tony. The little boy clung tightly to her collar, face buried in her chest, his big round eyes reflecting the worry in hers. He couldn't speak yet, didn't understand what was happening, but children sensed unease faster than adults imagined. She placed a gentle hand on his head, stroking his soft hair. Her heart sank. It felt as if someone had opened a door far too large, forcing her to stand between two paths, both terrifying in their own ways. Behind them, the man stood motionless, as though rooted to the cold tile floor. He watched the 3 figures walk away. Hoai moving quickly but tense, Tony clinging to her, and Hung shielding them both with his steady, broad shoulders. The man's eyes reddened. He opened his mouth, his voice cracking with each word. "Ca, whether you accept me or not, I will still wait. I never gave up. And I won't give up on you ever again." The words came softly, but with a weight that could make anyone turn away to hide their tears. Regret. Longing. A lifetime of searching, all compressed into one fragile sentence. The hallway suddenly felt colder. Hoai heard every word. Her body paused for a second, just a second, but she didn't turn back. She didn't know how to face him. Didn't know whether she should hope, or fear. Instead of answering, she tightened her grip on Hung's hand. Her fingers were cold, but his hand closed around hers completely. Hung leaned down, whispering beside her ear. "No matter what the result is, we'll face it together. You're not alone anymore." His voice was low and steady, solid enough that even the cold hallway couldn't shake it. His words wrapped around her like a blanket, soothing the fear churning inside her chest. Hoai gave a small nod, eyes fixed straight ahead. She didn't dare look back. She didn't dare meet the eyes of the man whose entire future now depended on the result of one sheet of paper. She simply walked forward. Each step heavier than any she had ever taken in her life. The DNA results still haven't arrived. That single sheet of paper will determine the truth of an entire lifetime, yet at this moment, everything remains uncertain. Hoai has not accepted him as her father. Not because she is heartless, but because a heart that has endured too many wounds cannot open itself simply because of an old photograph or a silver bracelet. She is afraid of hope, and even more afraid of disappointment. Tony is still just the right age for innocence. He cannot speak yet. All he knows is how to cling to his mother with his tiny hands. But in his wide, innocent eyes, there is a sense that something in his mother's world is shifting. Tony is the piece that makes Hoai even more cautious than before. Hung remains her constant support. From the examination room to the hospital hallway, every step Hoai takes is mirrored by Hung beside her. No loud declarations, no dramatic gestures, only the solid presence of a man who loves her with unwavering devotion. He is the reason she dares to face the truth that is drawing near. An emotional climax quietly builds. A father waiting behind her. A daughter caught between past and present. A child clinging to his mother, refusing to let go. A man holding his wife's hand as if holding their entire world together. All of them waiting. None knowing where the results will lead them. Stay tuned for the next episode. Is the missing child from years ago truly Hoai? And when the truth finally comes to light, will she be able to open her heart and welcome the blood family who has been searching for her for decades? The answers will come in the next episode. Don't forget to leave a comment and follow the series so you won't miss the latest developments.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Mình đang làm video. Bây giờ thì mình đang lựa ảnh để làm thumbnail đây mọi người.